Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the lunch table with my co-host here, Ben. Welcome,
What's
Ben.
going on? What's going on?
So we had a very interesting last week of week 17, of NFL, and we're going to start off with the Washington football team versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and the game certainly was not good by any stretch of the imagination. Ben, do you want to go into it a bit?
Um, I guess so. I mean, my whole thing was more of the game itself. Yeah, it wasn't the most eventful game, but I mean, we still got the dub. No matter how you want to look at, I mean, we're going to talk about this next, but I'm just going to go over the overview of the game. Game itself was all right. I mean, Alex Smith, he had a couple of good moments, had a couple of bad moments. I mean, the Eagles also had a couple of their, you know, I guess you could say coaching mistakes and whatnot, but again, that's gonna be the next segment where I'm gonna just go off. But overall, I thought it was an okay game. It wasn't a horrible game, but it wasn't a great game either.
Well, see, Washington's offense continued to do nothing other than Terry McLaurin. I don't understand why Washington isn't running the ball more. It's clearly more successful than Alex Smith throwing a check down to the right to JD McKissick. And speaking of Alex Smith, comeback player of the year for sure on lockdown, but that dude cannot move like at all. He
Mm-hmm.
took I think I could count at least 3 sacks that didn't need to be taken if he could move more than an inch. Like
Yeah,
there were sacks he could have ran out of and like big plays, but the guy has no mobility, and that's because he had a serious injury stuff. Like he's suffering from serious injury still. So I do not want to blame that on Alex Smith, but the offense is limited. Like if Alex Smith is blitzed, the play is like nearly over.
yeah,
There was also the game was full of turnovers, and then the team who got the turnover turned the ball right back over. The offenses weren't really good at
yeah.
all.
They weren't that productive as I guess people were expecting them to be. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree, but we're probably gonna. I mean, Alan, do you have anything else to say, or are you pretty much done with this?
I'll let you get onto your thing because I know.
All right. So obviously everybody knows in right, like beginning of the fourth quarter, the Eagles decide to pull Jalen Hurts and put in Nate Suffell, who hasn't really played any snaps. Really, he was pretty much just kind of sitting on the bench. And Doug Peterson before the game said that he wanted to play him, and a lot of players on the Giants side, and even some NFL fans are really pissed on the Eagles about how, oh, they gave up, they didn't play their game hard enough or whatnot. But part of me is like, if you look at it, Jalen Hurts himself, the only real benefit that he had in that game was his legs. He ran for what, 70, 74, 75 yards or something like that with 2 touchdowns. Great.
Mm-hmm.
He can run with his legs. We've seen that around the league. Congratulations. But his passing was absolutely terrible. He went for like 7 for 20. He he had a wide open receiver in the end zone, which he didn't make a good throw on the run. May I mention that? And also, I just want to go off on how Giants fans, you can complain that you put all your faith into the Eagles and how, oh, it's going to be a new rivalry or whatnot. Guess what? You guys had the option to win games too. It's not just the Eagles' fault for you guys for scoring 2 touchdowns basically in the month of December. Like, I understand how you guys can be frustrated or whatnot, but at the same time, you know, you you can't put all the blame on the Eagles when you guys should have won some of your games that you didn't win. In my opinion, you guys should have had Colt McCoy in there and not Daniel Jones after the Seahawks win, because obviously Daniel Jones was not prepared to play that next week. And I mean, it's just at the rate of this, I think, or not the rate of this, but like it frustrates me because, granted, I'm thankful that we won. I'm happy that we're going to the playoffs and we're going against Tom Brady and whatnot. But at the same time, it's kind of like Giants fans, you guys screwed up, or not screwed up. You guys could have won more games. You guys should have won more games. You guys should have scored more touchdowns. You guys had a definitely more effective offense than we do some at times, especially when Alex Smith went out with the what calf
Calf.
strain, calf strain. I mean, it's just congratulations, and their coach Joe Judge about how Doug Peterson didn't play the full game or whatnot. I mean, you can go on about that, but the Eagles also had their share of injuries throughout the season. I mean, that game they have Fletcher Cox, Miles Sanders, probably multiple wide receivers. I know Deshaun Jackson was on there, but it's yeah, that's me. Go ahead, Alan.
So, like, on the one hand, yes, okay. In a very literal sense, pulling Jalen Hurts out was a tank job. Washington could not stop a mobile quarterback if their life depended on it. So I'll bring up the actual stats. Jalen Hurts was 7 of 20 for 72 yards and threw a pick, but only ran 8 times for 34 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not a great stat line going into the fourth quarter. Like, between both teams, there was a total of 460 yards, like between both teams. That's not good. So, on the other hand, it absolutely does the Eagles nothing to win their game. They gain nothing from winning this game other than maybe playing spoiler to Washington, but it kind of seems like they want to play spoiler more to the Giants. And like the Eagles just lose draft position if they win, which at this point, this team is really bad. Like, they might be drafting a quarterback, which I know might be hard to say, but like there is no expectation for the Eagles. The Eagles have to do what they think is best for their organization, not for the Giants, because they don't work for the Giants. So the Giants can be mad all they want. They still only won like 6 games. Like, in a real world, Washington wouldn't even be in the playoffs if we didn't play in such a
horrible division and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I mean, parts to that is also you got to give credit to, all the coaching, like the coaching staff for like Washington or whatnot, like Ron Rivera. He really pulled our organization out of the deep end because we were atrocious in the offseason with all the, with just our team in general. We had the name change and whatnot. That probably wasn't easy as well for players and whatnot. And it's just, it's probably it sucks, but you got to give credit for Ron Rivera and whatnot. And Doug Peterson, if he tanked, he tanked, but I guess they got a better draft pick, which is good. So who knows what's going to be happening in Philly.
I also want to go back. Also, the Daniel Snyder's lawsuits. Like, I think Washington's probably gone through more this year, even considering the pandemic, more than any other team, from at least what I've heard. So I don't really want to hear. The Giants just got a new coach. Washington changed its team name, the logo. Daniel Snyder, multiple lawsuits.
Right.
Comeback player of the year with Alex Smith. Released our first round pick from like 2 years ago. And like, there's just so many things. Like, the Giants don't have an excuse. But talking about the Giants, we're going to talk about teams that didn't make the playoffs. And I want to talk about the Vikings because I'd be pretty excited about the future-ish for the Vikings, right? They have Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. I don't know how old Dalvin Cook is off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he's under 26. So that's pretty good guys. I think Ben's going to check that out. But that's pretty good guys. I remember from my time, from Kirk Cousins' time in Washington, I never liked him. Kirk Cousins was a average quarterback, if I'm being honest, at best. He didn't have like ice in his veins, so he's only okay. And you got a ton of money thrown at your quarterback, who isn't probably even worth that money. And the Vikings defense is still bad, but their corners are still young. And I know the Viking system is pretty hard on young corners. So they have some potential, but like the Vikings pass rush is nowhere if Danielle Hunter's not there. But I'd be really excited if I had Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. I forget Adam Thielen. I know he's old, but Adam Thielen's still like a top 10 receiver. So I'd be happy if I were the Vikings fans for next year.
Yeah, so Dalvin Cook is 25 years old, and there's a 5-year. He's just signed a 5-year signing bonus with the Minnesota Vikings, so they'll have him till he's till he's 30, or I don't know exactly when he signed it or whatnot. But I agree with you. Vikings, they're still young. They got some good youth in Justin Jefferson, especially. Maybe they should address the quarterback situation because Kirk Cousins has his just like when he was with Washington. He had his great days, but he also had his terrible days. And when he has his terrible days, he doesn't look good. And overall, that's him. The other team that I want to talk about is the Dallas Cowboys, who didn't make the playoffs, but I think what you have to go on for going into this offseason is you got to give the Cowboys, I hate that to say this, but you got to give the Cowboys a little bit of credit for how they ended off the season, especially how bad they were, especially in the beginning of the season. So, I mean, personally, I'm gonna give Andy Dalton probably some really good credit because he really at the quarterback position when Dak went out. I mean, yeah, he had his off. He didn't have his good days, but he slowly gained his season back together. And hopefully, I mean, for if you're a Dallas fan, you want Dak to re-sign with you guys, but who knows where Dak could go. I mean, hell, he could probably even go to the Washington football team, which would be something. We'd have to pay him a boatload of money. Another team that didn't make it was the Miami Dolphins, the 10-6 Dolphins, who personally I think their coach, what's his name? Flores.
Brian Flores.
Yeah. I think he should do either him or Ron Rivera, in my opinion, should win Coach of the Year.
The Bills coach should win that.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I think I mean, you gotta look at the Dolphins. Definitely, Tua has some growing to do in being a quarterback. I think they should also re-sign Ryan Fitzpatrick just because of well, he's a liability in my opinion because if Tua goes out or Tua doesn't do well, who comes in? Ryan Fitzpatrick. And well, obviously they didn't make the playoffs, but they definitely have they got some.
They have 2 first-round picks though, with a number 3 overall from the Texans.
Mm-hmm. They can definitely build up that line that they'll probably need help with because I mean yes, most of the Miami Dolphins wide receivers were injured most of the season, but I mean they definitely have some promise, and especially in the secondary, Xavier Howard. There's also a linebacker. I can't come off the top of my head, but they have some youth going into the offseason that they can definitely build around. And maybe the Dolphins and the Bills could be a little rivalry as the Patriots are kind of falling out, and they also have their issues on what are they going to do, like with the Patriots at the quarterback position. But Alan, you got 2 other teams that are pretty big that didn't make the playoffs.
So one of them was the Cardinals, and I know Kyler Murray got injured in his game, and his backup who came in to replace him was like not even good in like the semi-professional league he was in. But the Cardinals should be a way more explosive offense than they were this year. Like you have Kyler Murray, who I don't have all my rankings down, but I know Kyler Murray's the top 10 quarterback, as well as the next team who has probably a top 5 quarterback. But you have DeAndre Hopkins, who's a top 5 receiver as well. Like, there's a lot of things this offense has that they should be better that they just weren't. Like, I think that's got to come down to coaching at that point. Like, if the talent's there, which I would say the same thing about the Cowboys. The Cowboys have the talent. They just don't do well. But the Cardinals, I'd be pretty worried about my coach, and I'd be looking maybe towards a new one. And for the Texans, that's the next thing I want to talk about. Man, is nothing going their way. They have almost nothing in terms of good to come out of that team other than the Deshaun Watson. J.J. Watt's pretty old, and he's not been able to play to his true elite form and probably not going to get back there after all the injuries. But the Texans are already like so deeply into cap, and they have no first round or second round pick this year because the trade for Laramie Tunsil, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, they do have Laramie Tunsil. He's pretty good. But, like, you can't even have your GM or coach come in because, I mean, one, you have Deshaun Watson, but you still have so much to do left on that team. But, yeah, you obviously have the hardest part on a football team to make a team is to get the quarterback. And Deshaun Watson had one. Deshaun Watson, if he was on a relatively okay team, would have won MVP. Like, he had an amazing year. And it's sad that he's on the Texans, and an MVP caliber year only netted him 4 wins because the Texans are garbage.
Alan, real quick, kind of have some breaking news in this report from ESPN. It says Ron Rivera mules rotating quarterbacks. Washington coach considering using both Alex Smith and Tyler Heineke versus the Bucs. Your opinion?
Should do it. Right. I heard Alex Smith and Terry McLaurin as the game went on got kind of beat up more and more, so they weren't able to do as much. But I think you need to get Taylor in there sometimes to at least, I know they said they might not actually do it, but I think you need to get them in there to get just a quarterback you don't know much about. Like the guy's only played a quarter in his entire career in the NFL. So I think it's an excellent suggestion, right? It keeps the Bucks not knowing what to do. I'd be a fan of
Mhm.
them doing it. How
Yeah,
about you?
I like it. I think also definitely this offseason we need to approach the quarterback situation because either we draft one or we pick up a veteran, and maybe that could help us out. But I know, Alan, you're not too fond on that because you would rather want a rookie than a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so moving on. This is kind of just what's going around sports. Obviously, really, there's nothing besides MLB or not MLB. I apologize. NFL and NBA really going on right now. Personally, I mean, I'm just going to talk about actually two, two things and one major thing that's happening in Major League Baseball. MLB free agents this offseason have been taking forever. May I remind you, the World Series ended in October and no big free agents have really signed. Like it's been what? That's what probably like what 3 to 4 months, something like that. That there have been no major free agents, which in my opinion is stupid because just go out, you guys. Obviously, the money's not going to be there because of what's going on in the world right now with the pandemic, and I think because my next thing that I'm saying is that there have been reports that the MLB season is looking to start on time. Spring training pitchers, especially pitchers and catchers, get called up or get called down in February. So teams need to probably figure out what they're looking at. I mean, at a player schedule at a player scheme because whatever team doesn't or if you don't have players that hang on, let me re-say this. If you don't have, you have an idea of what you might have, but you don't have an exact idea of what you're going to have, that can really mess up the coaching staff and possibly the team and fans because obviously us fans want to know and have high expectations going to the season. Alan, you want to talk about Steph Curry?
So basically, Curry dropped, I think it was 62 points last night, which I think was his career high, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But Curry, within a 24-hour time period, scored 92 points. So he had one game where he scored 30, and then the next he scored 62, I think. So, I mean, I didn't like Curry because I'm gonna be very honest. I'm just a LeBron fan. I don't really care about basketball enough to like a specific team. So I've never liked Curry, mostly because LeBron had to run into him 4 times in a row. But Curry is a phenomenal player. I don't know why people are acting surprised that he can go off and drop 62 points in a night. It's never been a surprise to me.
Yeah. And just the last thing, I was trying to pull up the article, but it's not really pulling up right now. The Red Sox hired the first ever coach to ever coach in the Major League Baseball, named by Bianca Smith. She's going to be in the farm system. So, good things are coming on. We're starting to move into, a brighter future, I guess you could say. But Alan, you owe me an apology, good friend. You owe me a apology.
You're right. All right. Let's go on to the part I was correct about first. Alabama
Okay.
versus Notre Dame. I was correct, not in the score, but Notre Dame was never close in this game. Like it's within 17 points, but it really shouldn't have been. Alabama basically dominated Notre Dame all day. Devontae Smith played with their defense. He just like caught it like a little check down and then just sprinted past everyone else on the defense.
Yeah.
So once again, Alabama just dominates. And there's reports that Jalen Waddle, who um, injured his ankle in early October, started practicing again this week. So Alabama might get the receiver one back for the national championship, which is crazy because Devontae Smith is their number 2 receiver. And Devontae Smith,
Is that
when they
for
announced the
Heisman,
Heisman
right?
today, I'm fairly certain Devontae Smith's going to win Heisman. And if that's Alabama's second receiver, I would be scared about their first receiver. All right, but we can move on to the Clemson Ohio State game. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
obviously, you guys could have seen by now, Ohio State won 49-28. And on last week's podcast, I went off on Ben for even saying there's a chance that Ohio State was going to win. I said Clemson was going to bury them, and I said it was going to be another Alabama Clemson game. And I didn't think Justin Fields was going to do that. Like
Yeah,
that
he
was
went
that was
off.
out
He
of left
went
field.
off. Yep, he went off. I mean, I didn't really watch the game myself because I was doing stuff with family for that for New Year's, but I watched the highlights and I mean, props to Justin Fields. He did an amazing job. I mean, definitely showed the world and I think some NFL scouts about, hey, don't count me out. Trevor Lawrence is all this and that, but don't count me out. And I mean but he got banged up that game, dude. He got
Yeah.
banged up. So hopefully he is spending this week and resting up, and he'll be back because he is probably walking with a limp right now or something like that, because I don't know how many hits I could take if I were Justin Fields. But I think this definitely does affect the draft in the sense of teams might look at, okay, we had Trevor Lawrence, who was this, star since his freshman year and even like senior year of high school. But then we got this guy, Justin Fields, who has always been basically the runner up of Trevor Lawrence. And when these two met, I mean, granted, you can take about last year about how Clemson beat Ohio State. But yeah, I think the Jaguars, Jets, Texans don't need a quarter. Oh, we don't even have a third. Never mind. Dolphins, whole bunch of teams could probably definitely think about like, hey, you know, what should we do, and who will go number one, which would be shocking. But that does set up the football championship game, Alan.
All right, so I want to go back to just the Ohio State game real quick because I was watching it live, and I think your claim that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to go on is something I'm actually willing to laugh at you about. But Justin Fields had an amazing game. He had 6 touchdowns. He took a huge shot to the ribs, and the guy got thrown out for targeting. I don't know about that call, but Justin Fields took a big shot to the ribs, came back out the next play, threw a touchdown pass, and then like had to hobble back to the sideline. But wow, I think of anything, props to Ohio State. I don't know why Dabo Swinney was so high on Clemson, but I think it really just showed how much Trevor Lawrence is carrying Clemson. Their offensive line looked horrible. I understand Clemson has a pretty good defensive line, but it's like Trevor Lawrence obviously made some mistakes, but a lot of those fumbles he threw, like a lot of the fumbles that happened were because he had no time. He was trying to escape the pocket and he got strip sacked. But okay, coming back to the national championship, I am, of course, going to be backing Alabama. And in this game, I am confident that it will not be close because it's possible Alabama gets the number 1 receiver in the best passing attack in college. And I'm not even sure where Justin Fields is going to be in terms of his ribs. So that's not certain that he's playing, or if he does play, what percentage he's going to be at.
Well, I'm gonna side with you on this just because I as much as I gave Ohio State some shade earlier in the season when I don't think they should have been ranked so high, and then I chose them on a wild card round, and now I personally I think that I think Alabama will end up winning this game. It's not. I think it's gonna be a 1-score game. I'm expecting nothing too high, but yeah, I think that the Alabama versus Ohio State game. It's gonna be a good game. I think Justin Fields is playing it. Justin Fields would probably play it with a wheelchair if he's sitting in a wheelchair. He's playing that game. But I do have a question for you, Alan. If Ohio State wins this, okay, just throwing out conspiracy theories, I guess you could say at this point, predictions. If Ohio State does win this game, does Justin Fields have a stronger argument to go number 1
No,
in the draft? You
no,
don't think so?
no. There's a difference between being a really good college player and being a better prospect. Like Trevor Lawrence is one of the best prospects we've seen, like in like 40 years. Justin Fields is good. If Justin Fields stays back for another year, he's like the obvious number 1 pick. But no, I think it's unfortunate that he hasn't done enough really. Like he's had so much inconsistency this year that Zach Wilson probably will still go number 2. But no, Justin Fields is playing pretty out of his mind. And if he puts it up against Alabama's defense and has like 6 passing touchdowns, that would move me ahead of Zach Wilson for him because basically Alabama's like basically NFL prospects left and right.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I personally I think that he'll have some sort of argument of kind of like saying, "Hey, look, I beat Clemson. I beat Trevor Lawrence. I couldn't do it last year, but I did this year. And I also, if I can beat Alabama, which that would be a whole team win. I mean, the defense would have to be spot on
Yeah,
like
that's not
every
happening.
single pass. Yeah, which I mean, It's gonna be an interesting way to, I guess you could say, kind of start off 2021. But with that, I just one last breaking news that just came in. Kevin Stefanski,
He can't coach
for
because he got caught COVID.
yeah, he got COVID, and two other coaches, which I mean that means, and
Awful for
that's
the
against
Browns.
this, yeah, it's against the Steelers too, which I guess Alan, just a quick little thing. I guess who you think's gonna win that game, because that's the last game of for all the playoffs of the wild card round.
I really want to say the Steelers, but like if Baker can play well, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I don't want to say the Steelers don't stand a chance, but I think the Browns have a much more explosive offense than the Steelers do. But I mean, if you're missing your whole head coach, I don't know what to expect. I don't know who's going to be calling plays, and I doubt the person's going to be as good calling the plays as the head coach is. Actually, I don't
Right.
know who in the Brown system calls their plays. It could be their offensive coordinator, but losing your head coach for a playoff game is pretty awful. So I guess I would have to run Steelers there because less COVID stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think I see the Steelers just because they don't have their coach, or the Browns don't have their coach, and I think I well they. I mean, if you really want to look at it, the Browns kind of almost lost to the Steelers, like second string quarterback named Mason Rudolph, and they're gonna go up against a Ben Roethlisberger that's gonna be rested too. Just things that are coming out. But I think that's pretty much all we got for this week's show. It's been kind of short, kind of sweet, but hopefully with the playoffs starting this weekend. Remember the NFL playoffs. It's gonna be on both days, Saturday and Sunday. Um, Tune in for those games because they are going to be crazy, and I'm expecting a lot of big stuff coming out of these playoff games. I'm hoping some shockers of Chase Young finally getting Tom Brady, like he's been saying how he wants him so bad. Hopefully something will come out of this. But either way, that's been our show. We hope you guys all have a good 2021. Hope you guys all had a great holiday, and we'll see you later.
Peace out. Make sure to subscribe.